Good morning, everybody. It's September 12th, 2024, regular board meeting agenda. Magna Water District 8885 West, 3500 South, General Office Building. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Public, board, and staff, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome the public and guests today, and at our diocese table, we have Trevor Andre, Dallas Henline, Steve Clark, Andrew Slumshun, Jeff White, myself, Mick Sudbury, Danny Stewart, Leals Fitzgerald, our legal counsel Nathan Bracken, and our general manager Clint Dilley. So is anybody here that would like to address the board with a public comment? If do, raise your hand and we'll. Case Stewart, come on up.
You need me up there?
Now, well, if you could talk.
So I want to appreciate everything you guys have done. And it's been very helpful and you've done a great job. I just have a concern, and I know this is about the secondary water. I know you've got a new system coming in next year. But, and I've brought this up before, is when the secondary water right now at the end of the season, you're using supposedly the little reservoir up here by cemetery. And I've worked for Salt Lake City Water Department for 35 years, and I'm retired now. So I have a little bit of knowledge about water treatment plants and several other things. But anyways, I have mentioned that when you have that secondary water running, that in the, like, say for instance, what I brought up before is it needs to have an aeration or some kind of thing to keep water moving in that little reservoir up there, because it's getting stagnant and it's really, really bad smell. It's so bad that I can't even sit out in my yard to have a dinner or invite people over to come see come and have dinner or during the day, because it is so rancid that it stinks so bad that I'm embarrassed to invite anybody over to my home. And if this system is going to be used in the future with this new one, that one really needs some kind of variation, some kind of water flow to keep water moving, because it's really bad and embarrassing of my neighborhood and my home, and I want to invite people out who won't invite them because it's so bad. So that's what I have to say, but I appreciate everything you've done, but I think if that stays in line, something really needs to be done with it. That's all I have.
And I agree with that. And we'd had this discussion before. And I think what we need to do is, like you said, is put like a fountain on there so that, the water's coming up and it's kind of stirring up the bottom.
So I have a suggestion, if you're pumping it out there, and I don't know how you have the water line, how to run it in there, but even if you use whatever you're pumping out there and make it just go into the air to get some aeration, to get some flow and to get something moving instead of stagnant. Because, and I know there's a little one in the very middle that moves a little bit. It's really bad. But that's a suggestion.
Well, you take like this time of year where it's got so hot and it just sits there and we've had so much wind and stuff come. A lot of times that wind will roll it and blow the stuff from the bottom and make it stink is what it's doing too. And like you say, if we had something to move the water, that'd help it.
I think the point's fair, and I certainly appreciate the comment. We'll certainly look further into it. The challenge we have is the water doesn't stay in that reservoir very long. The detention time in that reservoir, they're not oversized for days and days. The biggest challenge is that it's from Utah Lake. So in that reservoir, it is sitting, right? And then it's coming down the canal. The hope is, and the desire is, with a completely different source of water, we're gonna improve dramatically on those issues. Certainly, it doesn't hurt to investigate aeration, but as you would know, I'm sure you would agree, if you're aerating something that's just going out quickly, it's not as advantageous as if it were stagnating. I totally agree with you. If it's sitting in there for long, you're gonna have problems. If the water is moving through the pond quickly, there's not a whole lot of benefit that's gonna be provided in comparison to one that was just stagnant. So I think he brings up a good point, and
So-
we can look at it, but there are some challenges in that it's not like those reservoirs are designed to hold water in there for long detention times. Does
So
that
where
make
would we
sense?
be getting that smell though if the water's totally moving through?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, because I ride the canal often on my bike, several times a week.
Sure.
And I know the canals just from where I ride to like Bangor, or not Bangor, but Kearns and then back.
Sure.
But there's a lot of overflows and stuff, and that's getting a little bit more aeration. It's moving it and it's going. But when it goes into a reservoir and just sits, something really needs to be moving it. And I've never smelled any smell, even when we go by the pump station right here where it has that screen that's to put more odor into the air because it's moving and it's spraying that to keep it clean, you know. And I have never smelled it there except when we have the water at the end. It's usually the end of the season.
Yeah.
Clint, could we be having some kind of growth in the bottom there that could be coming from the source of water?
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that obviously that environment creates is it's more likely that we're having growth in the pipelines themselves.
So with our cleaner water, we
Yeah,
may
that should
eliminate
help.
that
We
completely.
actually are gonna have to take a pretty aggressive, we're actually gonna have chlorine in the water. When we send water from the reuse, there is gonna be chlorine in it, and that's gonna help control some of those issues with the chlorine that will help, oxidize some of that. The other thing, we're gonna have to do a pretty aggressive cleaning, because that chlorine's gonna dislodge a lot of the buildup that we get, even more than a regular flushing that we do at the end of the season. We're gonna have to take, we've talked about a more aggressive approach. But certainly, I think the point's well taken. It's just how effective will it be if the water's not truly in there very long? And we can certainly review that. And I-
So how often do we grudge the bottom, go in and kind of stir up the clean out the bottom? I mean,
We haven't.
We've never had-
Part of the issue is we haven't dredged that in a long time. We
okay, you
talked
think
about
that's something that we probably gonna wanna do
Yeah.
before we,
Yeah, I think that's wise.
See, like right now, it's settling, all that stuff's settling in there, because it's moving out here. And it settles there, and then with all these winds we've been having, it's just like the Great Salt Lake where it rolls it, and that's where you're getting the smell.
one of the problems too,
And if we clean the bottom, like you say, dredge it,
right?
that'd help it a lot.
One of the problems, Stuart, we're having too, is people are taking their grass clippings and dumping it in the canal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, grass clippings.
Yeah,
That's the worst, and we have no way to control that.
and then
But
that's true.
With the
'cause
reuse, it should greatly improve.
Yeah. I don't think we ignore, just because we're going to reuse, we ignore that. I'm
No.
not saying that, I'm not saying that at all. I think we look at it, we just have to understand that there is a limit to what that can do if the water's not staying in there very long.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. Appreciate it.
Okay, Rick,
No, I'll talk to it later.
Okay, you don't want to address? Okay.
We
See, we were prepared for ya.
We can talk.
We don't want to talk to him anyway.
Now I know why Stuart doesn't invite me to his house.
What did he say?
He don't know, he now he says why Stuart don't invite him over to his house.
He'd drink all my beer. You know?
Okay, let's, I forgot to disclose, no one has a conflict of interest on our agenda today, right? Okay, see none, let's move on. Okay, let's approve common consent items.
Minutes of the regular board meeting held August 8th, 2024. Expenses for July 29th to September 1st, 24. General expenses, $3,2008,511.00. Zions Bank bond payment, $83,492.50.
You got a second?
I'll second it.
It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, take this, Clint.
Sure. Matt's not here this week. He's on vacation. So we wanted to recognize Matt. We had a customer that had called into the office several times on pressure complaints. We had sent employees out on work orders to investigate, and they didn't find any problems with the pressure. But they weren't able to reach the customer when they did it. And so we were communicating that information through the office staff. And he kept calling in because he continued to have problems. And so we asked Matt to go out and do some more extensive testing with the customer. He spent about an hour out there. He took pressures on the main at the service, and then also when the guy was running his fixtures, all full bore, and then when they were off, and the pressures were consistent, and they were good pressures in the 90 range, 90
Oh, wow.
PSI. When the guy, then we went and put it on his house side and tested the same thing on and off, and he had a dramatic drop in his pressures.
Wow.
So something's going on in the plumbing. It could be the PRV. We're having several complaints in some of these neighborhoods as we've learned more. But Matt, we wanted to recognize for taking so much time. He finally convinced the customer and helped him identify where the problem was, because he kept feeling it was our problem. So
I've got people that have had PRB in for about 7 or 8 years, and they're getting very frustrated with that same problem, because I told them, put a bypass in if you want, but otherwise, and I told them how to take it apart. They don't want to do that. So I said, well, put a bypass in and forget about it, because it's the PRB that's causing the problem in 3 cases that I talked to.
yeah, there's some sort of flow restriction, because the pressure's good when there's not much flow. As soon as there's flow, that energy, that change in the pressure, the PSI, that's energy that's getting changed and transferred into heat somewhere in that, it's burning
Yeah.
that pressure.
2 of them, I told them check their outdoor faucet, the wall faucets outside, and they had good pressure. And then at the house, they didn't have very much. I said, there it is, it's the PRV. So,
So we just wanted to recognize.
So let's bring him back next month.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to department reports. Let's have our general manager report, Clint.
Okay, so I just wanted to highlight a couple things from the written report. On the water side, our lead and copper, the new rule, we've completed the inventory, and our consultant is getting the final report prepared based on all the work we did in the field with the water team and the engineering team, and inspectors helped out a little bit too. So we're excited to have that completed. They are going to put a letter together to go to some of the customers that were identified where there were potential lead on their side. We do have Rick let me know that his main, he's got a unique situation where there's like a 2-inch service that feeds him and some other. We think he's asked that that be replaced. It's on our side.
Right.
We think this program might help, with it being galvanized. We could probably justify using that to take care of your situation. So I'm glad you're here to hear this. We talked about it, that would probably qualify for that program. So,
And if it does, let's get it taken care of.
either way, we can get it taken care of. It'll just be timing. So we're budgeting for next year, based on how many services they've identified to
Okay.
get those going and replaced next year. And then we'll have an interactive program for the public to check. They can check, get on our website and check the GIS network, right, the portal.
One of the requirements is that all the information is forward-facing to the public, so they can look up their address and see what's been done and what the inventory is. So there'll be a GIS portal that they can, it won't have any other information than just a dot at their address, and they click on it, and it will tell them the information. So they won't have access to our full GIS.
Okay.
But most of the lead, but most of the lead showing up is not on our system. It's usually predicated on their piping in their house, right?
Yeah, and to be on top of that, we haven't actually seen any test values that have been concerning. It's just that the materials themselves could potentially be. If we were providing water that was more acidic, had a more corrosive, and if it was more, the pH was lower, there's a potential that it could be drawn in some of those materials, but ours tend to be more neutral and more basic, a little bit more basic on that scale, and so we would tend to deposit material. We try to find that right balance. So that's all on water. I did miss staffing. Obviously, we've got Steve Clark joining us today. He was awarded the water operations manager position, where we'll transition Raymond as he retires. He'll be training Steve, and Steve's here in his place today because Raymond couldn't make it, so great.
And congratulations
Great timing.
again,
We
Steve.
just wanted to congratulate Steve. We know he'll do a great job in this role with his 30-plus year, almost 30 years experience. He's worked in every department on the water side.
And he's still young.
Still youngster. He has a great relationship with the employees, which we value, and they respect him, and so we know he'll be successful. And we're welcome, Steve. Thank you. So,
We're excited to have you.
on the wastewater side, just wanted to highlight the reuse project for the secondary. It should be up and running with the testing by the end of the month.
Will you let me know when that's gonna be? Because I'd like to come down there.
I think they're starting the filters on the 30th, is that what?
Real close.
Real
Start
close
some
to-
training and
I'm real excited about that.
Yeah. So are we.
I know the Great Salt Lake ain't too happy, but I know we are.
Well, we'll send them the canal water.
Right.
They can have that.
That's what they want anyway.
Yeah. Yopify, on the office side, I just wanted to highlight the Yopify. We feel like we've narrowed down the pricing that we'd like to propose. We want to go with a more basic package at first, to test it out and get a feel for how well it's going to work before we do anything more extensive. So we'll recommend that to the board next month, and then we're just gonna finish up the reference checks. We have some questions that we want to answer from some of the other agencies.
And then you'll explain to us what the basic compared to what the, what the.
Yeah, we can leave that up to the board, but essentially the basic is just their basic service. The other option they provided was based on getting some grant money, and it could do some more custom programming. So we just didn't know if we wanted to make sure we feel like we could always chase that later if we were happy with the program.
Okay. So with some funding, could we get some grant money from Jordan Valley?
We think there's potential to get it,
Okay,
but we didn't want to bite off more than we could chew.
Right,
off
right,
the
right.
bat.
okay.
And then last thing I'll just hit on, Mick was joking, I did a presentation at the council meeting, on Magna Water District in general. And I think it went well. I went a little long for the,
He can't come back now to Magna Water, down to Magna City, because he only had 10 minutes and he went an hour and 15.
I didn't miss the mark that bad. But, I think it went well and had some good feedback and
Yes.
hopefully it was beneficial, so.
Done real good down there.
And then the last thing I should report, customer complaints or concerns I wanted to report to the board. We have had a lot of calls on people saying that they've had high water bills this summer. I think that's a combination of things, obviously with the dry, hot weather. They're using more water, that's the reason. But I think the past couple years with the drought, they have kind of been forced to use less water. And so this year's feels a lot more
Yeah.
because it's more
23
typical.
days of triple digits.
Yeah,
I did have some people call though and thank the office for letting them know when they had high usage.
oh, good,
They thought that was awesome. So,
good, that's good feedback.
I asked Jeff if he had any part-time work, because I need to pay my water bill.
No, it's just like a toilet valve or something like that. And they said they wouldn't even have known it was a problem until they got notified,
That's good.
because they got notified before the bill came.
And it's funny too, that float in your toilet, you don't really hear the water going over it. I had that happen before, and it's like,
We've had the low pressure complaints in Gabler's Grove. That's the new Ivory development off of
2820.
2820. This is where we've had several people and we've went out and looked and we think it's the pressure regulators.
But them regulators ain't that old, right? I mean,
No, they're brand new. So we think we did some more testing on our side to confirm, and we're gonna have Leal reach out to the developer's representative and ask them to go through, especially with any of the new homeowners, and have that checked.
2 people I talked to, I know when I put them in, I make sure they have an inlet, a strainer ahead of them. It's built in. It's a little more expensive. It's probably another $50 more, but if they don't have that, any possible debris could get in there. They just don't seem to be the better quality when they have an inlet strainer built into them. So I asked him, I said, is your strainer plugged? And he goes, where's that at? So they took a picture and sent it to me, and there was no strainer.
Yeah, a lot of them don't have them.
and I had a new one put on too a while back ago, same thing.
Then Gateway to Little Valley, we've had fewer, but we have had a few in that area. We do believe that we have a valve that we haven't been able to, that's been closed. That's that work on 8400 West.
Right, that they're trying
We've
to
got to
relocate.
locate that valve. It's on the agenda later. Steve will talk about that, but we think that will solve that issue.
Oh, good.
It hasn't been major and it hasn't been all the time. They've just reported at certain times. They've had some pressure that's not as good as usual.
So because I have a gauge on my down where my water comes in, what is the pressure supposed to be?
We have ranges, so depending on where you live in the zone,
Okay.
it shouldn't get down below 50 to 60, right on the low end.
Yeah, and if it's in your house, that gauge, and it's after the
it is.
regulator, then it's based on what that regulator.
My,
pressure
and it says 55.
probably goes. So
That's in range.
your house is, say, probably mid-zone, so you should be quite a bit higher than that in the system. So your regulator's probably set to like a 60, 55.
Okay.
in that
Yeah,
range.
because I don't have a regulator, and mine runs about 85 to 95.
Yeah, so we don't really like to get much higher than 110. That's really pushing the limit.
Because they told me if I turned it up any more, and then my water heater thing might, no?
There's a lot.
That and your faucets and your sinks can blow. Other problems too high.
Right.
Yeah, you have to find that balance for your system. that
It's
works
working, so I'm
best.
okay.
And then last, we have had some requests for better notification on main breaks. That's always a challenge, to be able to get the word out quickly that we've got an issue in somebody's area, and that Yopify will definitely help with that. So we think that's a good solution.
Yeah, because that'll work out, because that'll send out everything, notices to everybody, especially for that area.
Just for that area, which
Right.
is, that's probably the biggest challenge is, do we notify everybody for something that's only affecting a few houses? We don't yet have, other than putting hangers, we can put door knockers on, but that's challenged to do when it's an emergency break.
Well, when I came home last night, I had a voicemail on my house phone saying, I'm out of power. It's like, okay.
So we think we'll be able to make progress on that with the Yopify system. That's my report, unless the board has anything else.
You have anything you want to
No,
address?
I'm great.
You're great. Okay, let's move on to our engineering report, Trevor.
Okay, thank you. The water line project has essentially wrapped up. We did a walkthrough yesterday. Noah and Sons, commend them, they did a great job. They did everything that they needed to do out there. We had very few punch list items, a couple valve boxes were a little bit off, where we couldn't get the wrench on the nut. That'll be sorted out. A couple meters were a little high, a little low, so they'll fix those, but overall, they did an amazing job. They reacted quick when we had, needed them to do something. I think they treated the customers really well.
Yeah, I never heard no complaints. The only thing that I would like to see happen is from here on out, when we're doing a project, I would like to team it with the city. And so if we're paving the road, let's finish that whole road so that whole road's done. So we have new and old.
Yeah, and that was a challenge with that roadway that they worked directly with the county and their
Right.
inspector. And I think they did a good job overall there as well. So that one's in the books. The reuse project, Clint mentioned that, but that's been going really well. Influent pump station, we're just still kind of working through these preliminary things, RFIs, submittals, reviewing things, but that should start to get a lot more active come October, November. We'll start to see groundbreaking and things. Let's see. Haynes 8, just ongoing work with the EPA to get that grant, finalized. So we had submitted a work plan and they told us, great, it's on the bottom of our stack. It'll be about 4 weeks for us to review it. So, that's just a process we're continuing to work through. Other things, we're just proceeding along on like the change house, reservoir with property with Northrop Grumman, just continuing to kind of push that along, corresponding with them, but it's on their side, just waiting for them to final their reviews. Lobby office, if we go to the next page, I've got a table. It seats 8, and it's kind of the third page of that kind of shows it in the room and the color that's with that. It's very similar to this type of look as far as the wood, and we think it would fit well in there. Chairs to be determined. It could be the same chairs if you guys like these board chairs. If you wanted to
What chair,
have a thought on a
you know what, I really like this. I mean, tell me what you think.
I really like it, I think it's good.
But it would have a wood base.
Yeah.
I believe the leg is metal. similar to these,
Right.
kind of U-shaped on the board.
It looks, if you look at the third photo,
Okay, yeah, you can't see them with those chairs.
Do we need to put some whiteboards on the wall so you can draw in there and stuff?
Yeah,
Put some,
I think to go in the room, right now, this is the TV that was in there. We'll do a different TV, get a whiteboard. I think those are beneficial.
Right, I agree.
in the meeting room.
looks nice.
If the board likes this design, I say let's move forward and let's just go for it.
I like it.
Yep.
I would just say, I think it looks nicer with the, like, if there is a, I know it's not real wood, but if it had the wood bottom, I think it would give it, you wanted a little bit nicer, table in there.
I
I think this is,
I don't think that table looks, of course, I haven't seen it in person, but I mean,
Yeah, I'll ask him for the actual, like, manufacturer of the, so that we can have like a real
Yeah,
picture of
I
it.
think that would be helpful.
But if you like that kind of.
yeah, I do.
shape
I'm
and color
totally
scheme,
fine. Are you guys okay with that? I mean,
I like it myself.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
I like the 8 chairs. Now, is 8 chairs gonna be plenty, or do you wanna have 8 and then have 2 that's kind of sit out, so in case, but no, I think 8's fine, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if we have to grab a chair, we can grab chairs from,
If we buy the same ones, we could grab a couple from here.
okay, let's do that then. If you guys are all in agreement of that,
Yes,
that's fine.
okay. So you got the order.
Bill, okay? That's it for my engineering. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, Mr. Steve, your water report.
All right, so we'll start out the water production summary. Culinary water production in the month of August was 234.37 million gallons, or 719.32 acre feet, which was a 9.4% increase from 2023. Year to date, we've done 1,228.69 million gallons, or 3,770.99 acre feet, which is a 7.54% increase from 2023. We purchased 530.81 acre feet of water from Jordan Valley. And the secondary water production for the month of August was 94.06 million gallons, or 288.68 acre feet, which is a 34.63% increase from 2023. Year to date, we've done 337.8 million gallons, or 1,036.75 acre feet, and that's a increase of 35.29% from 2023. As far as the callouts go, between water and wastewater, we've had a total of 28 callouts. 24 of those were water, and 4 of them were wastewater. Total hours equal up to 137.75 hours, which 113.25 of those are water, 24.5 were wastewater. As far as the call-outs, 4 of them were for mainline leaks. We didn't have any service line leaks this time. And then 24, the remaining 24 were just miscellaneous stuff. Outages, different things like that.
Thank you. So one of the questions is we still need to be notified when we have main light break. You know, we need to make sure that me as the chair is notified. So when people call me, I can explain to them what's going on, because a lot of times they'll call and I'll say, I'll have to call you back. So if we can just keep that in the back of the mind.
No, I had people call me and say, tell us when it's gonna be fixed. I said, we have no way of knowing that. Depends on how bad
4 hours minimum.
Yeah, I think that if the operations managers can continue to communicate that to the people on call, just as the on-call changes, if we can just reiterate that each time, hey, this is what we expect. I think that'll help solve that for sure, yeah.
So I see you had Gavin Henshaw out, so that's cool. Okay, let's move on to our wastewater, Dallas.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to give a quick update on the collections crew. They've got the Vector flush truck out near the Walmart on 35th and 8400. They're working north from there and heading east, and then the camera van is not too far behind. On the treatment side, we kicked off our chlorine project. That's about 3 years in the making. I'd like to bring some before and after pictures back for next month, just to kind of show you what that equipment looks like now. Everything that's in there was original from when Danny and those guys had it installed in the mid to late 80s, I think 87. So this gives us a lot more operational flexibility, a lot more redundancy, and some control. So last month I mentioned I wanted to bring an aeration update. I prepared just a few slides. If we can walk through that together, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So this is the Water Reclamation Facility aeration update, September 2024. The purpose of the update is just to review our three-phase aeration strategy to address some of our immediate concerns while also understanding our long-term needs. So as a reminder, phase one included the purchase of inventory and a standby shelf unit, which we've done. Phase two was to install the Triton 2.0 upgrade kit to all of the aerators, which we've also completed. And then kind of the third phase to wrap it all up is to understand the future aeration needs and what the plant needs moving forward. So, thanks, Trev. So the immediate concerns that we established was the dissolved oxygen deficiency. And I think the board's familiar with those struggles and they have an idea of what that means. Just as a refresher, the dissolved oxygen control, that's one of the main control levels that we have for wastewater treatment. So when we start to lose the ability to control that DO, we can run into permit compliance issues. And then the other concern that we wanted to address immediately was the lack of redundancy, the lack of spare parts, and any additional equipment in inventory. So long-term needs that we've kind of tried to understand is complete a capacity study. And there's two sides of that. There's not only the hydraulic capacity, which is the amount of flow in terms of volume that our plant can contain and treat, but then also our organic capacity studies. What, each part of our process, what type of capacity do they have to treat? So, and then we're trying to update the wastewater master plan and our treatment plant model. So long-term needs, planning for future growth and expansion. Now, when we looked at addressing the immediate concerns, there were several factors we had to evaluate. I'll talk just a little bit about each of those requirements. We wanted to find something that we could put into service immediately without having to spend too much time and money studying, equipment compatibilities, electrical concerns. If our existing electrical equipment, did we have any room to run additional equipment? Any new equipment that we did purchase, how would we mount it? What would the installation process be like? How would we maintain that? Any piece of equipment that we were evaluating, what was its oxygen output per unit? And then the price and the availability. So when it came to the purchase, we ended up going with a piece of equipment, an upgrade kit from the same manufacturer as our existing equipment, Aeration Industries. The upgrade kit is called 2.0, and these are some of the specs that they advertise with this upgrade kit. It retrofits to the existing equipment, so it's not a major turnover on equipment. We're able to utilize the existing equipment. They advertise an increase in aeration capacity by about 18 to 20% per unit. There's increased mixing and then a little bit of a reduced energy consumption. I've put a circle on the piece of equipment there. The upgrade kit, there was some modifications to the shaft to accept that larger propeller. And then there was the diffuser plate at the bottom. That's a different piece. And then the angle on the propeller adjusts the angle in which the mixing's done. So now that we've talked a little bit about the equipment, I wanted to unpack the data. So I think trying to understand the equipment upgrade immediately is a little challenging. Once we get a few months of data to compare each other, the picture starts to make a little more sense. So what we did was we took some DO readings that we had on file from May of 2023, and then we compared them to the readings of May of 2024. We did this again in June and July, so we've got 3 months of comparative data. And then we looked at the DO ratings as a minimum level, an average level, and a maximum level. The numbers in green, they're kind of hard to see. But if we went with the advertised suggestion of gaining 18 to 20%, you can see that our average increase in May was 26%. The maximum was 44%. And then in June, it was even just a little bit better, a 29% increase. And then July, it was a 39% increase. So we think the equipment, we're satisfied with the purchase, and we're satisfied with the performance. And so what does this mean? What does the equipment upgrade do for us, and where do we go from here? So next slide, please. So present day, the equipment upgrade has given us sufficient DO to meet our current need. And then this allows us to meet the current permit requirements for some of those analytes of concern, the BOD and then the ammonia. And then upcoming, where do we go from here? We've got this update on the wastewater model. That's to be completed in 2024. The upcoming is kind of phase 3 of this, of the whole strategy, and then work through the master planning to identify the future needs. Part of the concern with the capacities are the infrastructure. So there's structural analysis that we've done. Some of our concrete in our basins is 45 years old. They expect you to be able to get 50 years out of it. So, you know, as we get closer to that 45 to 50 year range, we want to have a good understanding of how we plan for the next 10, 15, and even 20 years. And then-
Alex, do we need to coat the inside of the ditch, the concrete, to get more life?
No, I don't think we're at that point. I think this study tells us more about it, but there's some structural issues that we see that are visible. You can see some rebar, you can see some cracking, and that's on the exterior of the basins too. So, well, part of that evaluation is to see, you know, what we can do to increase the life of these basins and really take a good dive and look to see what condition they're actually in. So a condition assessment hasn't been done for a while, and we thought that was important as we look to update the master plan and look to some future planning.
The one I'd like to see is I'd like to see our coldest month like January and compare that against July.
Sure.
This year. That's gonna be an interesting comparison.
It will be. We obviously will have January's data from 2023, and the upgrades weren't installed in January of 24, but I think what I can just do is create a living document and make some of that data available for the interested parties, and I can bring that back.
Yeah, if it's done exactly the same way and we show maybe December, January, February, that'd be really interesting.
Sure.
with July.
I agree with you. I think you're thinking in the right way, and that there's seasonal changes to the DO, and those readings would be different. That looks like all that I wanted to cover as far as that aeration equipment upgrade. Unless the board has any more questions, that would do it for me.
I don't have no questions. Do
That's
you?
good. I was trying to figure, how do they get you, if they put a bigger impeller, how do they get us reduced energy consumption? Do they change the pitch on the impeller?
That's exactly what they did. It was within a few degrees of the change, but it's also the increase in mixing, which keeps the solids in suspension. That's been a huge benefit as well. So
I bet that's really helped,
it really has.
really helped.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So let's move on to our controller report. Lee Isle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in my insert in the packet, we're in compliance with everything. We just have a couple highlighted things that are coming up. We've started on gathering information for our 2025 budget, and usually we set a tentative in October's board meetings, so we're working on that. And next month we'll have a tentative to bring to the board. On the second page, those are highlighted blue, the trainings listed because they're complete. And then the other item that I'd like to bring up is the training for the trustees, and that is completed if we all attend the UASD conference, which
Is
is
November-
later on in the agenda.
Isn't that November?
It's November, yeah, it's on November, I think, 4th through 5th up in Layton.
Layton?
Yes, November 6th through
6th
the
through
8th
sorry.
in Layton.
Okay.
And then the other highlighted item is the employee performance evaluation. Andrew will comment on that, but we usually complete those by the end of the year, so
Awesome.
that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our HR manager report.
Thank you, Board and Chair. Just want to update you on the safety focus for the month. We're focusing on hearing protection. We've done quite a few trainings over the last couple weeks on the types of hearing protection available to them, the threshold for damage to hearing, how they rate the different hearing protection. I think our leads have done a good job at helping focus them towards a lot of these things as they're out there on the job. We did our quarterly goal update over the last couple of weeks. I think for the most part, people are on track to be able to complete them. I think you're gonna see come fourth quarter how much growth and positivity that program has brought. We're appreciative of the board support on those things. Flagger training next week for a couple of our employees that were unavailable when we had the company come in to do the flagger training. So we were gonna get the last 3 people that need that trained next Monday through Utah State in Taylorsville. And then the last thing to note is we've got Unified Fire coming in on our next safety meeting to do a training on our fire extinguishers.
Okay.
And we're excited to invite them out.
Maybe we could include them on how to open a fire hydrant and close a fire hydrant without shocking our old system. You think that would be a good time to bring that
They
up?
train us and we train
They
them.
won't listen, but yeah.
Absolutely.
We'll have
It's always good.
We'll have Steve take them
Can't
out
do
and give
that
them a lesson.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't do that.
I mean, I'm sure they're getting new people too all the time, so doesn't hurt to have a refresher.
Valve systems either, because sometimes they
Yeah, and then you blow the whole.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole line.
And that's it for me, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
it
If
is-
there's anything else from the board?
Nope, do you guys have any more you want to address on it? Are you all good? Okay, thank you, Andrew. Let's move on to our project award agreements. So Trevor, let's take it off with number 1.
All right, thank you, Board and Chair. So this is the material testing for our WRF influent project. IGES submitted this. They've done testing on the reuse project, and that's been effective and done well. And so this is based on the quantities of material that are in the plans of concrete, backfill, those things that they would test and do quality control on. And estimated at, between 13.5 and 16,000, we're requesting approval of 16,000 to cover the testing for that project.
So are we gonna put it in at 16,000?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the IGES task order for the WRF influent project in the amount of $16,000.
I'll second that.
It's been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Trevor.
Okay, so, one of the things that, wastewater and I have been working on, Dallas and me, is Northrop Grumman local limit study. That's been ongoing, and at one point we had, Stantec assisting with that. They had a person there that was very knowledgeable on local limit studies and the things that go into that, the EPA regulations, requirements. They had left Stantec, which kind of put us in a position where we reached out to other consultants and recently met with someone at AE2S, their wastewater practice lead that specializes in industrial users, in commercial industrial users, similar to Northrop Grumman or some manufacturer that may come in. But anyways, we asked them to come out and have a conversation with us about this. So we've kind of given them a lot of this information of this local limit study and asked them to put a task order together to assist us through this process. You know, I think it's very beneficial for us to have this expertise on our side. Dallas and I can do only a certain amount of this with you know, a lot of confidence, and I think that having them there to bounce ideas off of, have them review and go back and forth, and making sure that anything that we agree to, you know, this future living document that we're bound to with Northrop Grumman, that we're very comfortable with where that's at. And we do, you know, we have confidence in AE2S and their.
Nick left.
It was one employee with Stantec.
Okay.
But anyways, this is yeah. So that's where it got us to working with AE2S and asking them for this information. So if the board approves, what our game plan is to just kind of continue with Northrop Grumman and have AE2S supplement us as needed. So that is what this task order is for.
Okay.
You guys have any questions?
No, we're good.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve AE2S task order for the SIU agreement, Northrop Grumman, in the amount of $16,572.
Second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on again, Trevor.
Okay, thanks. Doing well. So this is for the environmental assessment of the railroad property purchase. So Terracon is doing that assessment. They've completed phase 1, which identified some potential sites out there of contamination. Phase 2 goes more in depth into that site investigation with soil sampling, test bits, things of that nature, lab analysis. They put together an initial plan, and that's what this $21,950 is for. That's sampling 9 sites and doing soil analysis for that. So, any questions on that portion?
No,
Does this follow any guideline the railroad would have for any sampling along there?
Yeah, so this is, their basis of this is other CERCLA sites. You can see there's these operable units. They have, is what they're called, CERCLA operable units. There's one on the residential or kind of east side of that property and one on the kind of southwest side. And so this initial sampling plan is based on what was done at those sites and doing a lot of historical investigation of what was on this particular property.
Oh, I see.
So railroad spurs, piles of debris, a canal, things of that nature.
So the sampling was, in essence, decided where to sample and how many was decided on what specific features were on the site.
Yep.
That's what this first proposal is. That didn't satisfy them to lift any restriction. So that's what the next proposal we'll talk about.
okay.
So we need, this one had to be done based on the phase 1 analysis. This one is the logical next step. But, so we need to get your thoughts on this one first, and then we'll talk about the next one. But,
so I got a question really quick. So up where you're showing, the tanks and the reservoir, is it gonna go up in,
Here,
yeah.
what do you mean?
Well, where are we putting in the new reservoir and the new tank?
Our new tanks would be more in this portion of the property.
Okay, so it's gonna
Up
come
the
up,
hill away.
Based on elevation alone,
As high as we
could
can get it.
adjust
we're
along
as
the
high as we can get it up,
Work
right?
with any developer that we wanna do.
Yeah,
Okay,
just straight out, if we have it all, that's the best location,
Okay,
right?
okay.
But we can, like Clint said, work
So
with,
that would be the southwest corner? Okay. Which is
So
the
it'd be
highest
up-
elevation of the property?
it'd be up against, Little Valley's, D.R. Horton's,
this is the last house kind of they have
Okay.
to the,
okay.
Isn't that kind of rocky up there?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like bedrock, but there are some larger material in there.
Okay, okay.
We actually assisted on a couple of the pits because it went into a second day and Travis went up there and he was able to dig them pretty smoothly.
Okay. Okay,
So is the historic information gonna come out in the second phase then?
Phase one was where that was all identified. And so what I can do is email you guys the draft of phase one if you'd like to see that.
That's okay. That's
It's still in draft form, so I
Okay.
haven't brought it in for
Okay.
presentation, but we can.
So now that we've included phase two, that should give us a really good go forward type, clean bill of health if everything's
Right.
okay.
That's the intention. yeah.
Okay.
so, okay, sorry.
Do you wanna make a proposal? Should we-
No, go ahead, you're good.
So we'll do, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve Terracon proposal for phase two site investigation in the amount of $21,950.
One second, yeah.
It's been motion, second, all in favor? Aye. So, really quick, so if we happen to find a bunch of stuff on this property, so does,
We haven't found anything concerning yet.
okay, I just want to make sure we hadn't gotten, okay, cool.
We don't have any reason to believe, though, there's any.
There's gonna, right, but the railroad does make you go through. Okay, Steve, we're gonna give this one to you.
Do we need to do the second one? Terracon number 4?
Updated agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't even look at that. I got the packet right here, so sorry, okay. Sorry, Leal.
No worries.
Okay, let's move on to,
You're not done with me yet.
okay, jeez.
Okay, so this is a supplemental site investigation proposal. So
No wonder I was holding this off because of the cost.
yeah, I'll jump straight to kind of the map that we were looking at previously. So we'd gotten with the railroad and they passed it on to their environmental management group. And they just kind of offhand said, hey, you need to investigate the entire site. Something that the Utah Department of Environmental Quality would accept. So our consultant at Terracon, they had a conversation with UDEQ, and that resulted in kind of a grid site analysis, which is what's shown here. It also comes with more testing along the railroad spur, which is these stars through the middle, and additional testing along what was a mining ditch along the railroad side of the property, as well as taking samples in these quarter-acre grids to create a composite of an acre sample. Now, this all doesn't seem totally unreasonable because, you know, in the phase one, they identified all of these potentials based on the historical use of the site. There is some, I guess, logic to kind of sampling a little bit out of the whole site. But then when we sent this back to them what we're trying to do is kind of get that really good feeling that they're gonna release this restriction. So we're going back and forth with the railroad, And then they say, hey, why don't you test for all this other potential contaminants? And what that did was just drive the cost through the sky. And that's what this proposal is based on. Now, I will say that based on the first proposal that you just approved, they've taken samples, they've gotten all of the data back, and none of the contaminants are above the limits.
Okay.
They're all under. So we are still in conversations with the railroad to push back on these requirements. Like I said, I think the grid is a good approach, but not the sampling that doesn't make sense. And so that's
Are we gonna
where we're
sample
having-
on the grid?
Yeah, I think ultimately we will do that, but it will be more, well, our hope is that it will be more limited sampling
Oh,
throughout the grid.
so what does this price include then?
This is the grid sampling all along the spur, the canal, as well as, and then just a lot more potential contaminants, so VOCs.
Looking
and-
for specific,
Yes.
low-level?
Yes. And things that, like these other CERCLA sites didn't test for. And so I think we have some things that we need to discuss with the railroad.
I think the bottom line is we're, in order to remove the restriction, the only group that we have to satisfy is the railroad.
Which
They-
is clear.
And so they are going to, we have to be able to convince them, hey, that seems more than, we think you should require of us, but ultimately it's their call. So we're asking the board for the approval of the most worst case that we can see, but we're gonna try to push back to try to, so this could be a not to exceed, it could be.
So I was gonna say,
We've got to remove the restrictions, so I think that's what we got to do. But it's safe to say that there wasn't any loading station here or transfer station or anything else. It's just a pass-through, so it should be good.
Yeah. And like I said, the initial sampling results are great,
Yeah.
so do we know how old this railroad line is? Do we know when it was put in?
They went back to, I think, records in the 20s to show some of that.
Okay.
Well, it'll be a clean bill of health. That's good.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Terracon supplement proposal for Phase 2, site investigation in the amount of $120,600.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Spendy.
Yes.
Okay, Steve, now it's your turn.
So as you're all aware, the plan was to try and have all the first stage of the EDR stacks changed out in 4 years. And they just, a year ago, ordered the first set, and we're just barely receiving them next week. So we're just hoping to get approval to go ahead and get the next stage ordered to have for next fall, next winter, so we can get them installed.
Because we had a hard time getting them, right?
They're about a year out.
Right.
GE's really hard to work with, so you never know what you're gonna get with those guys. It might be a year this time, and it could be a year and a half next time.
Okay.
How many do we have? Three staff?
4.
Four.
Yeah, four. And we've changed one out already, right?
No, the ones that are coming next week are
Will
for
be-
the first step.
For the
Okay,
first set.
okay. Yeah, I remember him talking about those. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the purchase of 8 replacement stacks for the EDR plant in the amount of $530,708.
I'll second that.
Been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Steve.
Okay, and then the next one that we have is, kinda goes back to what Clint was telling you about the pressures up in Little Valley.
Right.
We got a valve that's buried on 8400 West.
We haven't found it yet, right?
No, our guys went up and looked at, did what they could to try and find it, but the line's so deep up there, it's anywhere from I think it's around 12 feet deep.
We want to, and we want to get that taken care of before that new road goes across for the new high school.
Yeah, and it'll definitely help with their pressure issues.
Right.
And fire flow and everything.
And did you say we get quite a bit of calls from about low pressure over in that area?
Not as many, but
Okay.
a few.
We don't have anybody that has a thing that they can x-ray the
So
ground.
we've tried that, and it's so deep that it's kind of hard to tell, but they thought they picked something up. But we
You have to go after it.
Yeah, we need to verify it. So the bid that Raymond got from Nolan, he's hoping it'll actually come in cheaper than what it's, the 69,000 that he's got listed. It just all depends on how much they actually have to dig for. But if it ends up being where we think it's gonna be, that number should come in quite a bit lower.
Okay.
15 feet deep.
So I have a question on that. So with us not being able to find that line, we have a break. Where do we shut off at?
Well, the only good thing about it is it's off, so.
Oh, okay. Okay.
For that part of it, it's good.
Well, are you saying if that valve were to break, or we had a leak there, right? I mean,
Maybe it'd be a blessing, then that way all the water could come up, we'd know where it's at, right?
Don't even say that right now.
Yeah, that would be bad.
we'd have to go closer up to the tank, right?
Yeah, depending on which side of the break the line was.
So is this bid based on where we think it might be?
It is twice the amount of work that we anticipate, because we don't know, so we pretty much know where the T is, right? And then this valve is somewhere north of that T. So we have a good idea of what that distance is. So this is kind of based on 2 10 by, 10 holes, so almost 20 by 10, 12 to 15 feet deep.
So we just keep following the line then if we don't see it right there?
That's essentially all we can do. Is we know where that T is, so we go down on that, and then we move north.
I see.
And logic tells us that it shouldn't be more than 10 feet away from that T, but we don't know. And we didn't necessarily want to undershoot this because of just the, whole headache of it all. And so that's where Steve's saying this should come in well under the 69.
Is this line along the edge of the road? We're talking 8,400, right?
So we think we'll find it in that, the turn radius off of
Where
41.
you go west or?
Come north, it comes,
Yeah, if you were coming down 41 and you turned right to head north up 84, like in that island.
Like
painted
the
island.
runway truck lane thing or?
no,
The monument.
the other side.
Oh, the west side?
No, it's right there where you're thinking, but there's
East.
like the turn lane and then
Right.
oncoming traffic, there's that little triangle right there.
Oh, okay.
It'll be right
Oh,
in there.
what a mess.
And that's kind of a
It
scary
comes
area
with,
because of
you
all
know,
the
that's
traffic.
Wow, that is a scary area.
Traffic control. is
Yeah.
Wow, good luck. Or put somebody on the hill, flashing lights on the hill above you to the south.
Yeah, there's a lot of liability working on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the valve exploratory work by Nolan Construction on 8,400 west and 4,100 south in the amount of 69, not to exceed $69,513.
The second there.
In motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to administration. Or or whatever. Item J. No, am I off again?
You're right.
Yeah, Jay, I'm
You're
Jay.
right.
It's like, no, I'm,
Mine says something weird.
You're right.
Okay, so the first item under that is the approval of additional surplus items. We've completed the first surplus sale advertising and went through the whole process. And then cleaned out that last computer room downstairs, and there's some things that we can surplus that came out of that, plus 2 fire hydrants. Some of these things, like the laptops, our IT consultant's gonna have to wipe off. I mean, they haven't been wiped yet. We just wanna get these items approved, so when that's done, we can go ahead and proceed into the advertising and the surplus process.
we got a time clock and everything.
Yeah, That's when we used to have to use our whole hand. Now we just use the finger.
Yeah, I see.
So do we have to motion on that?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, motion to approve, listing these surplus items, Toshiba laptops, receipt printer, hand punch time clock, battery backup, USB, and 2 fire hydrants.
No, second that.
In motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Trevor.
Okay, so we briefly went over this program last month. I went back to the drawing board, got a little bit more information. And I guess my goal here is to, present a little bit more of this and then see if the board wants to have me bring it back as a voting item, next month. So, we'll just go through this. So this was in there before. This is the anticipated, incentive payment from Rocky Mountain Power that they produced based on the kilowatt hours or kilowatts from our water treatment plant and our wastewater treatment plant. As you can see, the anticipated earnings would be around $300,000 a year. And if you remember correctly, that would be that we're responding to their demand response.
They'll shut us off when they want, right.
It's our ability to decide whether we shut down or not, or switch off the grid power. We would not shut down, but.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean by,
If we participated each and every time, estimated $300,000 incentive each year. So just a little overview. Again, Rocky Mountain Power, we got some actual data from them on their responses from the past 2 years, 23 and 24. And each year had 5 incidents. 24 is not over, but in 23, all of those incidents happened within the summer months. And that's because of the higher energy use. And those 5 had already happened in 24 in essentially those same higher summer months.
But we were also, I talked to you specifically about, did it happen on a weekend?
Yeah.
Or did it happen during the week and was it during business hours?
yeah, or after hours.
I have those numbers and they varied. There were, I think, 2 out of the 3 in 23 were times where we wouldn't be able to respond unless we had, a call out.
Oh, no.
And I think 3 of the 5 in 24 were that way. So the automation of it, I think, is a key component for us to be able to participate fully.
So we're gonna have to spend money to automate that?
Yes, we would. I think that would be our best way to
Okay.
do this program.
You want to do that?
I don't know.
So-
I'd like to get more input from these guys.
Yeah. So a little more information on the what we do. We run our generators 30 to 60 minutes per week. Those are just the kind of maintenance runs. Getting this data from Rocky Mountain Power, we don't see it changing drastically, and we've done an analysis to show what 15 incidents would look like. And then if those incidents happened during a week, well, any week that they happen, if we haven't already exercised our generators, we wouldn't need to exercise them that week. So, that saves the fuel cost of that incident and the generator runtime. If that makes
So
sense,
have-
we're offsetting that.
Has your administrative people sat down and looked at this and said, okay, you're gonna flip off the lights, and it's gonna be off, and then you're on standby, and then come back on? So have you guys stepped through that and see where our weak points are for that?
So I've got, I forgot their name, Adam, sorry, with AE2S. He's looking at our specific switch gears and how that will all function. But the idea would be that, they would phase match. When we got the text, say there's an incident starting at 7 PM, we'll go use our automation, bring our generators up to phase match, and then it will seamlessly transfer power. There may be some things associated with that because our switch gears weren't. Some of them may have that capability where it's fairly easy, other switch gears may not.
Right.
And so that's where they've come in to help us identify that and figure out what that cost is.
So with the cost savings of doing this, the question I have with the generators going off and on, that comes with cost.
But we've already exercised them.
Right, I know that.
Yeah, so I'll jump to this slide since we're talking cost. On average, and these are just getting fuel costs and generator run times, we spend about $100,000 in fuel annually for all of our generators. Repairs cost roughly $6,000 every 2 years. That's based on, most of that is general maintenance, oil changes, and then every 2 years, based on runtime, we do a little bit bigger maintenance there. So we've done some analysis on if we were to do this program, how would that look? How much money would we actually get back if we said we're gonna pay for all this maintenance and all this fuel through this program? Do we still have a positive balance there? And if we were to do, if you look next to the red box in 2030, if there were 15 incidents, we would still come out ahead $155,000. So about half of that $300,000 incentive would still come back to us, and we're paying for all of the maintenance and fuel, even during our, just regular runs of our generators, our test times.
But most chances, we only get paid if this happens, right?
So if they only had one incident, we would still get the same thing.
We would.
We just have to participate 100%.
Okay.
That is the key.
It's kind of a contract thing.
If
Do we know who else is doing it or is thinking about doing it?
Well, not in the same manner as us, but the LDS Church, their large conference area downtown, they're participating through all those facilities, mainly on their HVAC. But I think their biggest, at least one that they had, I talked to the guy from the church and, went through it with them, and they like it. They use it in a different way than us.
I'd like to see if there's any water company or sewer company that is participating in this in the state of Utah.
Yeah, I can
Just
ask
to
that
see,
question.
just to get an input, because I think you might see them come back and say, well, we had to spend a couple $100,000
Yeah.
to get it all ready.
Adam can speak to this. He's out of the Fargo, North Dakota office, so he's got some knowledge broadly across the country, not just Utah, but maybe that way.
Yeah, as Trevor mentioned, my name's Adam Whaler, electrical engineer, electrical practice leader at AE2S. We have a lot of clients that serve the remote control programs for their associated electric utility. Trevor's obviously done a whole bunch of groundwork already for the study. We're certainly here to help fill in some technical gaps and financials if Trevor feels so inclined. We were able to walk the sites yesterday, so I was able to gather information that I would need to work with vendors and things to check generator nameplates and some of the transfer equipment to make sure it will function in a way that isn't a hindrance to operations. Kind of the steps you walk through, if I can have just a few minutes, with a program like this, and look at the generators. They do have to be EPA rated in such a way to be able to do this. For example, brand new generators today need Tier 4 rated, which needs depth and after treatment technology and so on. Older ones didn't need that, so checking that box. And then the transfer equipment. Transfer switches in general fall into three categories in terms of how they function. Open transition means that there's a 100 millisecond power bump when they're doing transfer between sources. That 100 milliseconds will drop operations out, initiation happens really a couple different ways. One is the utility calls the operation saying, hey, you have 15 minutes, start your generators, which I think is probably what is being favored here. How that gets done, and I'll touch on that in a minute. Usually another way is a ripple controller. Utility company puts in a receiving module, they send the actual command on the line, that receiver module picks up that signal saying, hey, we need to go to load control. It just has one relay that operates. You can bring that relay into a PLC system saying, hey, we need to go to load control. You can automatically send all transfer switches to transfer, or it could be to the operations center, hey, you're getting asked to load control, and the HMI can be set up with one button even that says, hey, start generators and transfer. So there's a few different ways to accomplish that. Those are not complex or expensive, frankly. It's just really a couple PLC inputs usually on each site. Manual is probably 50-50. Some plants want it that way because you want to watch the generator start to make sure there's no fuel leaks, etc. Others, the dispatch center right from the utility does it. They don't even want to know about it because it's seamless, it's automatic. SCADA's monitoring the whole operation, so if there is an issue, you can respond after that. And then we also usually build diagnostics and things into the SCADA system. You can track fuel usage, associated costs that go with that if you want a dashboard to make sure expenses are coming in as you want them to. Also, I'm sure yesterday, every diesel generator you ever put in usually consumes about 0.7 gallons per hour per kilowatt. So with utility bills, we usually can simulate and tell you, like last year in 23, what it would have costed to run for a half an hour each month, depending on your load. It's very linear once you start adding load to a generator like that. So certainly this can be forecasted easily with the study. So
And then utilities similar to us, do you have any examples?
in Utah, we don't have any. In the upper Midwest, we have dozens. North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and frankly, it's because those utilities have had established programs much longer and more lucrative. They have been. I actually haven't been exposed to this one, Rocky Mountain Power. I did study the rate, and usually it's been for the churches, residential air conditioners, heaters type situations. So it's interesting that they are reaching out to municipalities and districts at a big level like this. At $100 a kilowatt, that's certainly up there as far as the incentive goes with what other utilities are offering. So it certainly appears to be worth looking at from a fiscal standpoint, especially when you're limited to 20, 30 hours a year. That's usually the liability in these programs, that the utility will run you 300 hours a year, and you have to pay all that diesel fuel to run. So limiting the hours contractually with the utility would be something to consider to limit the risk on fuel costs.
Yeah, but I won't even come close to comparing this to the church heating and air conditioning system.
Yeah.
I can turn that stuff off for an hour and it's okay.
Yeah,
We're
it's
talking
very
about serving people with water and be able to treat the sewer. And we've got a lot of equipment, and variable speed drives and stuff are sometimes a little ornery about that kind of stuff. So I think if we do anything, we need to maybe move ahead and look at what it's gonna cost to be able to do this like what he just described.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, what it's gonna cost us to have the system be able to do what you're explaining it should do.
Yeah.
I can say unless it's all happens for any plant operation like this, water or wastewater, I think every client we do this with, it's been close transition, it's been seamless. So that you didn't have the hindrance of having to restart treatment operations. Like I said, pump stations have been treated differently. Restarting 3, 4, 5 pumps is pretty simple with PLC logic. Starting the whole treatment process of this work doesn't require a hindrance. So looking at the transferring the equipment will certainly should be a main focus to make sure it can function how you need it to.
And one of the biggest things is we've got to be careful how we start this equipment, because we are based on our demand load. And if you're starting equipment altogether, that demand charge is going to eat us up compared, see, we run 24/7.
Yeah, and I kind of talked to him about that as well, and the fact that we wouldn't have like a spike because it's just the power wouldn't change because we're not starting any equipment with that seamless transition. It would be the power we're consuming and then it's off the grid. And that same power is being provided by the generators, and then it's just put right back onto the grid. So there isn't that spike.
Well, I've had in a couple of plants, not here in Utah, but I've had a couple of plants that it's gone down and the operator gets all wigged out, so he'll go over and starting equipment up. And that demand charge is over a 15-minute period, and all of a sudden, their power bill was like 40% more because the operator's just trying to get everything back up and going.
Yeah.
Because let's say you do the transfer and the equipment doesn't come up like it should. Variable speeds are that way. Some equipment starting. And all of a sudden, the whole month, you've got that demand charge against your bill. So it's not just a one-time thing. So we need to look at that very carefully, and you need to get your team involved in that. And we need to dissect this. So what is it gonna cost us to evaluate this right now?
Yeah, that's where they come in. That's where we'll have, and I think that's the only way, because of those reasons. We don't want to turn everything off and then have to turn it back on. It's got to be that seamless transition where we don't have those bumps, we don't have those hiccups. They don't have to go through each piece of equipment and make sure that it started. It just stays the way it was.
It sounds great,
Yeah.
but normally this is gonna happen probably in the afternoon when the power company's having trouble with demand, and they're gonna wanna turn things off. And so they look at us as a big demand. But this last year was probably terrible for them for being able to meet demand, because people come home 5, 6 o'clock, turn on the air conditioners, and that's where the load comes in. Unfortunately, that's not our business time. So it's gonna happen 7, 8 o'clock at night. So that's what I say, let's look at that very carefully. And
Absolutely.
since we're already upgrading a bunch of equipment for communication and everything else, that's a plus.
Yeah.
So that will help a lot.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, so we'll continue that. Do you want a voting item next? When I bring that, additional information, what the cost would be, what the contract is, and those details?
what would it say? It's kind of based on how our equipment is. Is our equipment good enough to do that? Have you evaluated that our equipment is good enough to do?
Meaning our generators and our
Yep,
switch gears?
yep, all the
That's-
communication and everything.
Yeah, that's one of the key things that Adam's helping us with.
I gathered all of the information I need to yesterday to work with manufacturers to verify all of those things.
So then we'll have a cost of what it would be to automate, make sure that our current equipment can handle that if there are upgrades that need to be done. So there will be all that information.
So we'll have to do our upgrades first before we could attempt to do this, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
we would do that. Yep.
And that's what we're already upgrading anyway, aren't we?
We're doing SCADA upgrades.
Right.
So not necessarily the same stuff, but it can be all part of that project if we want it.
So what do you think?
I agree with what you're saying. It's like,
So do you want us, basically what I'm hearing is for the board to consider it, it would have to be reasonable costs to get us to the point where it could be seamless. And you have confidence. So if that's the case, if you find that is, we bring it back with those numbers. But until that point, I think it's in the additional investigation.
Okay.
I wish
that
we could
fair?
do a trial run, boy, let me tell you, that cuts the men from the boys if you do a trial run and see how it works.
Yeah.
Then you go, oh, because,
Well, Adam made a comment yesterday because when we were at the treatment plant, the power was out. And it happens, and almost if we sat back and thought about what's the weather like this week, we might be able to guess when those bad days are coming or the wind starts to pick up. If we had the automated systems, we would be able to transfer over without the power going out and without them having to go and restart every single piece of equipment. So I think even outside of participating in this program, having that automation on our
Oh,
generator
yeah.
system
No
is a
question.
benefit to us.
I found out now, since my boy works for the power company, they're very sensitive now to wind. And they will shut the system down in a heartbeat because the wind causes the lines to come together and starts fire. And that liability they can't afford. So they'll shut it off before they're,
Yeah, and if we could anticipate some of that, you know, we turn on our generators before the power goes out, and that, you know, eliminates a lot of headache. So anyways, yeah, we'll do some more information gathering, investigating, and I won't bother you until I've got
it
great
does
confidence.
it does put a lot more emphasis on our generators though, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot more.
It does.
I mean, they gotta be, we gotta have them for backup and everything, and it's gotta be reliable, so I'm not against that. I'm just saying, it puts a lot more focus on that, so.
Yeah. It does.
I think, what we're doing, AE2 is doing that communication upgrade and everything. I think that's fantastic, it's well needed, so.
Thank you for listening and your comments.
So do we need to do anything on
No,
this?
we don't.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. Our next board meeting is October 3rd at 10 o'clock.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
October 3rd was chosen clear back in January, I believe, because WEFTEC conference was like the week that we prepare the board packet.
Right.
And thinking that maybe staff wouldn't be here to get that done, we moved it up to the 3rd. I guess right now, if people's schedules work, I would propose moving it back to the 10th, to the second Thursday as normal.
Okay.
Because no one's attending the WEFTEC this year.
Okay. I'm okay moving it back. Are you okay?
So are we gonna do October 3rd then?
No, we'll go to October 10th.
Oh, 10th,
Does
okay.
that work with your schedule?
Will that work?
Let me see.
Do we have the motion on that, David? I mean, Nat.
Yes,
Nathan?
I don't think it hurts to motion on that,
Okay.
so there's a record, because Lee Isle will need to
Notice the change.
notice it up.
Okay. Okay, you want a motion? We'll go motion from,
October 3rd to October 10th.
10th, right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to move the board meeting from October 3rd, 2024, 10 a.m. to October 10th, 2024, 10 a.m.
I'll second that.
It's been motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to training and safety. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you can see, we have the fall conferences coming up. I'll give you a quick rundown on what we propose. There's a conference in Provo through the Human Resource Management Society that I am a part of that does a lot of good training on updating with business law and things changing within human resources that we propose me attending the 23rd and through the 25th of September. There's the Cassell Conference. This is the system that we use for the office staff and as well as our work order system. Maybe Leah can talk a little bit about how she's managing the staff for the front office through that.
Yeah, we'd like to give each one of them an opportunity to learn additional things on Cassell. And so, as in the past, we've assigned a girl for like 3 hours and then they come back here and then another person comes for 3 hours. So we just alternate each day of the conference so that we always have 2 people here at the office.
I wish they had that live or Zoom so that you can
I know.
set up in here and have a couple people without, the travel is what kills you and not the time.
It is
but-
really hard to get the traveling done, but it's actually worked.
Yeah, I have attended that conference for a half day for each, and it's a good, I learned quite a bit. I think it's beneficial for the staff.
I just wonder if they have it on Zoom, they should have it remote. Did you check into that?
They do not. They
Well-
might record some training sessions,
So-
which we have.
And
that
they do
already, but-
discount it since they're not truly charging us for all 5 people to attend. They broke it down because since they know that not all of our people are attending the whole thing.
They gave us, 2 free registrations, basically.
Okay, so what my suggestion is, so we got Andrew, Clint, and Trevor and Steve, they'll work the front office, right?
Yep, there we go.
That's what
You thought you heard complaints before.
You got that problem.
Dallas saw that and said, well, who's gonna be working out front?
Dallas is working the till.
And then we also have on there the UASD conference, November 6th through the 8th. As you can see on there, there's a Wednesday session only cost of $125.
That's for the
which-
trustees
for the
on
trustees
Wednesday.
As well as
Okay.
Steve. Steve's only attending Wednesday as well.
Okay,
It's on the 7th.
6th would be
6th.
the day that you guys are attending.
trust-
and it starts at 1 o'clock, right?
Roughly, after lunch.
After lunch?
It's the Wednesday and the Thursday that usually matter. I think the Wednesday is when they have the board member training.
Yeah,
Right.
Wednesday's the one that's only for the board members, so.
Okay,
Steve will be attending that as well
Okay.
with the board members, just
Okay.
those on the Wednesday. And then Clinton Lee Isle, we're proposing that we register them for the full session.
okay,
And then we have the WAU mid-year conference, which is here local, West Valley, $100 per person. And we're proposing Dallas, Bo, the treatment lead, and Trevor thought it would be beneficial for our new staff engineer, Matt, to attend as well.
okay. You guys all in favor? You okay with it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm okay. We don't have to motion on that though, do we?
We do have a possible motion in the agenda. I don't think it hurts since there is
Okay.
a cost and just to make sure
Okay,
that it's
just a
something board
motion for
supports.
these.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for our staff to attend the Cassell. Do we have to prove that? Cassell Summit?
I think you could just do all the conferences.
Yeah, just say Excel, yeah.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the attendance of the conferences that are upcoming for September, October, and November.
I'll second that.
Been motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are indeed of having a closed door meeting today. So if someone would like to make a motion,
Call it brief recess.
yeah, for a brief recess.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take a brief recess immediately following closed meeting to discuss the character, professional competence, physical and mental of an individual, the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, including any form of water right or water shares pending or reasonable imminent litigation and collective bargaining purposes pursuant to Utah Code 52-4-204 through 205.
I'll second that.
Been motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
It is 11:38. Someone want to close the close and open the open?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the closed meeting and reopen the public board meeting.
I'll second it.
It's been motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. Okay, consider any agenda, no, we're good. Any other business wants to come before this body?
Okay,
Okay, someone want a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Been motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.